Hello, 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 and welcome to my new show. Welcome to Sacred Democracy. I am Maddi Cheers, and I'm very thrilled to be back here with you. This show is inspired by my love of the Haudenosaunee and the Great Law of Peace. And actually, all the episodes are going to be based on the story that I'm about to tell you. Because it turns out that over 1,000 years ago, 5 nations came together to live in peace after a long period of war. And they did so under the instructions from a messenger from the Creator, who they call the peacemaker. And as I watch around us and I see how democracy is under attack, I feel like one of the reasons it's being attacked is because people do not understand the sacredness of it. They do not understand that this is the only form of government that we have that allows us, we the people, to be the ones in charge. So we just have to take hold of that. We have to fix the democracies we have so that they follow these ancient teachings. So I'm going to start with the very, 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 very brief version of the peacemaker's journey. And by going through this, we'll get to what their democracy looked like and how their democracy came to be. And within this story, I'm hoping that you will hear lessons for us to learn about how we can change not only our personal relationships, even our inner relationships, but our governmental relationships. So, the Great Law of Peace, the peacemaker's journey, starts like this. Now, the Haudenosaunee and many other Native people say that everything and everyone on the planet was given instructions by the Creator on how to be what they are supposed to be. A deer is born. It always grows up to be a deer. It follows its instructions perfectly. It does deer things. So people are different. We have a choice to make. We have to choose who we're going to be. We have to choose what we're going to do with our lives. So our instructions have to do with making good choices. So we have 3, what they call the 3 original instructions about how to be a human being. So here they are. Number 1, we should be grateful for what we have and not worried about what we don't have. Number 2, we should treat each other and all of nature with kindness and respect. And number 3, we should live in clans. Clans are groups of related families following their lineage through the mother. The mother's in charge of the village. And by following the lineage of their mother, they know who they may and may not marry. They must marry outside of the clan so that the children are healthy. And by being raised in a village with your entire family, you are raised in a loving community. So they say that for thousands of years, when human beings had gratitude, they were respectful, they were kind, and they grew up in loving communities, they were happy. And that makes sense, right? But on the whole planet, we are the only ones that forget stuff. A deer does not forget how to be a deer, and it grows up to be a chipmunk. Now, when we forget how to be grateful, then we become greedy and jealous. And once we are greedy and jealous, it is a very, very short hop to being disrespectful and unkind, to losing all the love, and that love turning into hate and fear. And that's what happened here over 1,000 years ago. Many people got here. It was a beautiful, abundant place, and people just wanted more. It was never enough. And they say that they started stealing from each other. That guy's got more stuff than we've got. Let's go take his stuff. And once they were stealing from each other, the wars broke out. And the wars then became about revenge. And once you go down that path, it is really hard to come back. And that's when they say that the men invented that haircut that we call a mohawk, which really originally was not called a mohawk. That's just what it's called in fashion. But all those many years ago, you cut your hair that way to scare your enemy. That was the war haircut. Because when you cut your hair that way, you are telling your enemy that you have cut off your tie to the Creator. Not only that, you have cut off your connection to your own family. These guys aren't hunting and fishing anymore. They're too busy killing each other. So their children are hungry at home. These guys aren't back home building long houses, cutting down firewood. No, they're too busy killing each other. So their children are hungry, their families are cold, and these guys don't care because all they care about is war and revenge. And they say that at this time, the women went to the men and they said, "Men, you have to stop this. You have gone insane." So also when you cut your hair that way, it means you've gone insane. So they say that the women went to these men and said, "This is the end. We run the villages. We are telling you, end these wars." And the men said, "You wimpy women. We don't have to listen to you. We're bigger and tougher and stronger than you are. You try to stop us, we're going to kill you too." And they threaten their own wives and mothers and clan mothers, and they kick them out of power. And they say at that time, the whole world turned upside down. And the wars got so bad that the women's eyes were always filled with water, and the rivers ran red with the blood of men. They call this the dark and troubled times. Now, just when things were at their worst, they say a little boy was born. And this little boy had a very, very special light inside of him. And his mom and his grandma could see this right away. So they didn't want to raise him anywhere near the wars. So they took him away and they raised him far from the battles out in the woods. And there he could learn from mom, he could learn from grandma, and he could learn from our oldest teacher, nature. So they say that grandma would take him out, and sometimes she'd take him on a nature walk. And one time she took him out to watch a mountain lion. Now, if you watch mountain lions long enough, they will kill another animal. Why? Because they need to survive. They need to eat. But they will never kill more than they need. And as long as mountain lion A hunts in his territory over here, and mountain lion B hunts in his territory over here, there is no fighting because there is enough for everyone. So the peacemaker looks at lessons like this from nature and says, that's how we should be. We should not take more than we need. We should make sure there is enough for everyone. And he thinks about all these lessons, his mom and his grandma, and he grows up to have great respect for women and great respect for nature at a time when men had none. So when he gets to be 13 years old, he has come up with this plan for how to end war and how the whole world can live in peace. His word for this plan translates to mean something like the great, big, gigantic, amazing, wonderful good. And he knows that he is a messenger from the Creator. He is on a mission. And at 13, he goes out to teach people to live in peace. He meets people. He says, "I am a messenger from the Creator, and I have come to teach you to live in peace and end war." And the people, they don't want to listen. As a matter of fact, a lot of them want to kill him. So he decides he needs some help, and as he's traveling around, he notices that there's this beautiful village where lots of these men at war are coming. And he finds the leader of the village, and the leader is a woman named Jagunsase. Now, her village is very beautiful. It's wealthy because this is the only place that these men at war can come to get food and to get medicine. So he goes up to Jagunsase and he says, "Listen, Jagunsase, it's great that your village is so beautiful, that you're actually doing well because of the wars that are going on. But think about it. One day you'll be threatened. What will happen to your children? Wouldn't it be better for everybody if everybody's village was beautiful, if everybody's people had enough food and had enough medicine? Wouldn't it be better if we could end these wars?" And she says, "Well, yeah, I guess it would be better, but how?" And the peacemaker tells her his plan for peace, which we normally call the great law of peace. She listens, she loves it. She even adds in a few ideas of her own, some say, and then she says, "This is how I can help you. When these men are with me, I will tell them the great law of peace. I will show them my beautiful village. They will be tired of war. They will want to bring peace back to their villages. And then peace can spread village to village to village." So for being the first one to help the great peacemaker, she is known to this day as the mother of all the nations. And the peacemaker makes her a promise that when the wars are over in this new government, he will see to it that men and women are equal. He leaves her to do her work for peace, and then he meets the second peace helper. Now, the second peace helper is a man named Iowanta. This is the pronunciation I learned, so that's the one I'm using today. Iowanta was an Onondaga war chief. He was one of the guys leading everybody into battle. He gets hurt in the war. He goes to Jugunsese's village. He sees the beautiful village, and he becomes the first war chief to feel ashamed of himself. He is so ashamed of what he has done that he lays down his hatchet and his war club, and he promises he will never pick them up again. He also promises he will never speak another word of hatred. He will never speak in anger again. He learns the whole great law of peace. He takes it back to his Onondaga village to teach it, and the men are listening. But back in his village, there is a mean, nasty chief named Tedadaho. And Tedadaho does not want peace. He wants to take over the world. You cannot have peace if you want to take over the world. So he gets really, really mad at Iowanta for teaching peace, and he poisons his wife and 7 daughters. But he makes it look like they died of a sickness. Now, he does that because back then the Onondaga used to believe that if you were the last one left alive in your family and your whole family was dead, you were cursed, and you brought that curse to your family. So Tedadaho jumps up and goes, look, Iowanta's cursed. He's brought that curse to his family. He's going to bring the curse to us. You know what the curse is? Peace. What a stupid idea, peace. We're men. Peace is going to make us weak. We got to get rid of this guy. And all the men go, yeah, we got to get rid of this guy. And they chase Iowanta out of the village, and they follow Tedadaho back to war. That's why when the peacemaker finds Iowanta, he is crying by the great waters. And the peacemaker sits with him, makes him feel better, helps him to grieve, and then notices that all around him there are millions of shells with a message. And the peacemaker picks up a shell like this first, a clam shell, and he says, listen, Iowanta, you were right about peace. See how this shell is mostly white. White is the color of peace and the Creator. So the shell is telling us that there should be more and more peace, love, gratitude, respect, kindness, happiness, and creativity. See the purple on the edge? Less and less anger, hatred, war, fear, greed, and destruction. With each new group of children that's born, we are supposed to be getting wiser and kinder to each other so that one day we can push out all that anger, hatred, war, fear, greed, and destruction. And on that day, all around the world, there will be peace. And the Haudenosaunee believe that that day can come. So they take these 2 shells, the one with the spiral symbolizing the universe, sometimes the Creator, and they carve them into beads called wampum beads. Now, Iowanta feels so much better after his time with the peacemaker that he realizes he cannot save his own family. They are gone. But if he works with the peacemaker, he can save everybody else's family by bringing peace, and no one will have to suffer the way that he did. So he decides to travel with the peacemaker because, you see, the peacemaker was such a peace genius that he couldn't get his ideas out fast enough, and he stuttered. So since he stuttered, a lot of times people would not even listen to him. They'd even make fun of him. So if no one would listen to the peacemaker, Iowanta would speak for him. And together with Jugunsese, the 3 of them, after 40 years, managed to bring back the 9 clans of the Haudenosaunee: snipe, eel, bear, turtle, hawk, deer, beaver, heron, and wolf clans. They gathered them around the great tree of peace, and then the peacemaker, who was a supernatural being, they say, pulled that great tree of peace out of the ground. And in that hole, there was water rushing by, an underground river. And the peacemaker said to them, if you want peace, you must bury your weapons of war. But along with your weapons, you must bury all the hatred and greed in your hearts. Because wherever there is hatred and greed, there will never be peace. They buried their weapons, they buried their hatred and greed by forgiving each other for the past and agreeing to move into the future. The peacemaker replaced the great tree of peace, and then he gave them their instructions for how they could live in peace, and they lived in peace for over 1,000 years. Some people even say 2,000 years. So that is the very, very short version of the history of the peacemaker's journey. So how did their democracy work? And very importantly, this democracy influenced Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. It was so brilliant, Benjamin Franklin actually has a rather unkind statement where he says, if these savages can have a government like this, then certainly we can. So we have to look at what was left out in order to figure out how to bring our democracy back together, how to be as true and real a democracy as the Haudenosaunee had. Now, if we are looking at that, then we're going to start with what the peacemaker said. He showed them the symbol for peace, and he said, if you want peace, you must have a government where everyone's voice is heard, where all the laws are fair to everyone, and where men and women are equal. If you do not want those three things, you do not want peace. But those 5 original nations agreed with them, and approximately 300 years ago, the Tuscarora also agreed. So to this day, there are now 6 nations that have agreed to this true peace. As Tom Porter always says, what got left out of this is the creator, is this idea that peace and that democracy is a divinely inspired way of governing. So the peacemaker sets up the Grand Council. Now, before you can set up the Grand Council, you have to have leaders. So there are very specific leaders, very specific character qualities for who can be a leader. You must be peaceful. You must be kind. You must be respectful, responsible, honest, unselfish, humble, open-minded. You must know your ceremonies. You must love your family. You must have a skin 7 layers thick so that if you make an unpopular decision, you're not going to be changed by someone who's deriding you or degrading you because of your decision. Because among these people, there is no campaigning. You can never even say to your mom, Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to be a leader. You're out. Because if you want power over other people, they're never going to give it to you. Because they were smart enough to recognize that people who want power over you don't want power. They want the power to control you. They want to be in control, and that is why they are seeking power. Even if they start out good, even if they start out with the best of intentions, there's something about wanting that power that will change them. And we've seen that. We've seen that in presidential candidates. We've seen that recently in these debates, that candidates that started out all high-minded suddenly went into the muck and mire of accusing each other, of calling each other names. Eventually, they want that power so bad that they will lose their integrity. So if you want power, they're never going to give it to you. Humility is a very, very important character quality. So only men can make laws, but only women can choose the men who make the laws, and only women have final approval of the laws. So the women are watching the boys and girls grow up. When they see boys and girls that have these character qualities, they keep watching them. These are usually people who don't even think that they should be leaders. They're not thinking about leadership. They're thinking about helping their people. They put others before themselves. So when that person is old enough to be married, when they have their own children, they are old enough to become a leader. And if chosen, they will serve for life, as long as they remain in good character. So you have the Grand Council, which is made of 9 clans altogether that have sent their representatives, the 5 nations, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. So the Grand Council, this is one of the parts that Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin copied. The Grand Council, the Mohawks and the Senecas, are the older brothers. The Oneidas and the Cayugas are the younger brothers. Then in the center are the Onondaga. They are the fire keepers. So the older brothers and younger brothers pass laws back and forth across the fire until they all agree. Now there's a part they didn't keep. They agree, they all have to agree that the law is fair to everyone. Then they send it to the Onondaga, who is like our president, except instead of 1 president, they have 14. all of them must agree the law is fair. So altogether, when this all started, there were 50 lawmakers, or lo yane, men of the good. And then they had to present that law to the Supreme Court, the 50 clan mothers. So the clan mothers had final approval of the law. If even one clan mother thought the law would upset the great peace, she could send it back to be fixed. She could veto it. And advising them in all of this, and above even the lawmakers themselves, are the faith keepers. There is a man faith keeper and a woman faith keeper, very special people who, again, have been looked at since they are little for their sacred connection to the Creator. So the faith keepers advise the people. There are sub-chiefs. They have a lot of advisors to the clan mothers and the lawmakers to make sure that these laws are fair to everyone and will not upset the great peace. That's what we call using the good mind. What do we use in our government? The quick mind. We want it now. We want it now, 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 now. We used to at least have 60-40 with a lot of stuff. Now we're down to 51-49. And as Thomas Jefferson said, he didn't like majority rule. He wanted to have consensus like the Haudenosaunee had, because Thomas Jefferson said majority rule is like gang rule. 51% of the people get to tell the other 49 what to do. And you can see in our country how unhappy that has made everybody and how that has divided us and kept us from coming back together. So if we look at who can be a leader, I always go back to the fact that leadership is where we have to start changing our mind. If we look to how would we make our democracy more like a Haudenosaunee democracy, then we would also change a lot of what is fundamental to our democracy. Right now, like more than one party, we would have to completely do away with lobbying, which lobbying is just the worst. If we really want to get money and influence out of government, we would have to get rid of lobbying. We would have to get rid of money being contributed to political candidates, and we would have to start picking people based on character. This can all be done because, like the Haudenosaunee, what did get put into the Constitution is the idea of making an amendment. But also, it is up to us. If we want peace, we have to make decisions. Do you want to be right or do you want to be fair? And like the Haudenosaunee say, like the great peacemaker said, you have to want to be fair. And right now we are stuck in a place that I think is very much like the dark and troubled times. Nobody wants to be fair. They just want to be right. They just want to have things their way. And when we look around the world, we see men that are exactly the same, men running lots of countries, men who I would call two-thirds people. I was sitting in a circle once, and Grandma Mary, a member of our circle, the oldest member of our circle, said that she can't understand how people do not have some form of spirituality. Because if you don't, you're not a complete person. You're only two-thirds a person. You're not just body and mind, you're spirit. And somewhere that spirit, which is described as love very often, has to be a part of your life. It has to be a part of your decision-making, or you have no moral compass. You need that moral compass. Our leaders need that moral compass. And when we look at the story of the Great Law of Peace, when we look at the very brief version that I just told you, you can even look at the energy of what is male and what is female, what is divinely male, what is divinely female. And we can choose leaders based on this. We can set up our government so that we are looking at what is the best and highest solution for everybody. What is that solution that will bring everybody life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And those solutions have to come from the ground up. They have to start with the children. And the reason that these leaders have to have children, it's usually 3 children, 1 to replace your spouse, 1 to replace you, and 1 to add to the clan. But they have to have children because without children, you have no investment in the future. And the reason the women choose the leaders is because back then, back in the dark and troubled times, the only ones that were concerned about the children and about the future were the women. So the peacemaker said, all right, women, that's it for you. You men, that's it. You don't get to pick leaders anymore. When we let you pick the leaders, you only pick leaders who wanted war and revenge. So that's it. Only women will choose the leaders because only women were worried about the future of humanity. And we can look at those qualities that we attribute to the divine feminine and say, this is the type of person that should be a leader, that should be choosing leaders. This is the mindset we should have. This is why the Haudenosaunee do that Thanksgiving address, where they are grateful for everything in nature, where they put themselves in a state of mind before they make a law, before they choose their leaders, so that they are in this state of gratitude, this feeling of abundance, not scarcity, where they can make these wise decisions so that they can create the best democracy possible for ourselves and our posterity. Or as the Haudenosaunee say, whatever decision we make, we must consider how it will affect the next 7 generations. So I don't know about you, but when I look around the world, I'm not seeing any leaders like this. And I feel like, yes, it's going to take a lot of time. This is not going to happen overnight, but we should start that commitment to changing the world so that it really is just and fair to everyone. When we look at what's going on with China, Xi Jinping, talk about a 2/3 leader. This man actually said recently he wants to be loved and feared by the Chinese people. That's ridiculous. You can't be loved and feared. They are mutually exclusive. Pick one. And the one we should pick is love. If you are loved by people, it is because you are generous. It is because you put them before yourself. It is because you are making their lives better and happier. And in our own world, what are we doing? We're just calling names. We're pitting each other against each other. What we are certainly not doing is listening. We are not listening to each other. There is no way we could reach a complete conclusion with the leaders that we have. They will not compromise. Nobody wants to compromise. We have this idea that, standing your ground means you're strong. We got to stand our ground. Well, like my mom used to say, you stand your ground long enough, and eventually, forgetting that other people are standing their ground, your ground is going to turn into quicksand. And you will sink, and you will take others with you. So standing your ground is important, but it's more important to listen and to understand why someone disagrees with you if you want peace. So when I look around the world and I ask you to look into your hearts, do you want peace, or do you just want to be right? Do you want to be fair when you are making these decisions? For yourself, for your family, when you're voting out there. We have so much fear with voting. Oh my gosh. Lots of fear. Nobody will vote for new parties because they're always afraid that, the other guy's going to get in power. I can't vote for a brand new party. You know what would shake up government? My theme, I believe, for 2020, anybody but a Democrat or a Republican. You really want to shake it up? So we have to change our minds and change our hearts. We have to start thinking in a different way. And we have to start understanding that without the involvement of spirit in all of this, we cannot succeed. We cannot go further. Nothing else can make this happen for us except for us to look at these things, to look at our own hearts, to not constantly base what we do on what is expedient or what is popular. Even in our culture, we have that saying, what is right isn't always popular, and what is popular isn't always right. So it's not self-righteousness that we're talking about. It's a kind of righteousness where we are in it for each other. The idea that we will have community, that the community is more important than ourselves, and that we heal ourselves, make ourselves better so that the community can be better, so that the world can be better for everybody. Everybody. That is the mind shift we need to make. I mean, sadly, I've read some pretty nasty stuff on Facebook recently that doesn't lead me to believe people want to make that mind shift and that heart shift. But maybe because we haven't told them how. Maybe we have to set up these situations where people can come together and meet and talk and get rid of all that anger, hatred, war, fear, greed, and destruction so that we can be happier, we can be kinder, we can be more creative. So I'm very happy to be back here again at Strong Island Radio, back with all of you, back here to have many guests on, because the perspective of this show from now on is going to be how our spirituality, how our community can affect our major decisions. We're going to look at some very important topics, but we're going to look at it from a spiritual point of view. We're going to look at it from the point of view of the great law of peace. What would the Haudenosaunee do in the case of some of our most trying questions, in the case of abortion, education? And we're going to start next week. I'm going to have my guest, Marianne Francisi, is going to come on with her absolutely brilliant plan for sacred listening. And this, to me, is where it all starts. We have to learn to listen to each other. So that's going to wrap it up for me today. I want to thank you all very much for being with me on this short opening for our show. And I'm going to do a real quick pickup, Bobby. I'm going to pick up. Hold it. I'll be right back. I just want to show you all this beautiful artist rendering, Robert Jumper, of the Great Law of Peace in pictures and symbols. So let's see. Have I got that up there? You can see most of it. And the nice thing about keeping track of things in pictures and symbols is that your storyteller, your historian, gets to create the moment with you. When Tom Porter was once asked why they didn't write down the whole Great Law of Peace, he said, because you, me, and the Creator, we're creating this moment right now. If I'm good at what I'm doing, I'm telling you this in the way that you need to hear it. And if you are here with me, then you are hearing what you need to hear out of this story. So I'm hoping that I did that for you today with this story. I'm hoping you heard things you needed to hear. And I'm hoping you will share, like, and comment on the new show. And I want to thank you all so much for being with me. I want to especially thank Bobby Lacera, my producer, and everybody here at Strong Island Entertainment. And I just say to you all, I wish you all peace, and I wish us all unity. Thank you.